You know how most birthday parties for little kids are? Loud, chaotic, filled with cupcakes and way too much glitter. This one was no different. My little cousin turned 6 and my aunt went all out with this fairy garden theme. The venue was called the Enchanted Petal, which already tells you everything you need to know. Pink streamers from the ceiling, pastel balloons in weird flower shapes, kids running around with plastic tiaras and sparkly wings clipped to their backs. It was like walking into a bubblegum-scented fever dream. Everyone else seemed into it, especially the kids her age. They were lining up for face paint, giggling while pretending to cast spells with glitter wands. Meanwhile, I was just there. 5th grade is that weird age where you're too old to join the fun but too young to just leave. I remember walking around awkwardly for a few minutes, dodging flying confetti and polite conversations from distant relatives. Eventually, I found this semi-quiet spot, a lounge area off to the side near where people hung their coats. No one else was there, which was perfect. I slumped into this oversized chair that kind of swallowed me whole and pulled out my PSP. That thing was a lifesaver. I remember just zoning out with it, barely noticing the noise behind me. I didn't want cake, didn't want juice, didn't care about gift bags. I just wanted the party to be over so I could go home. At that point, there was nothing strange about the day, nothing worth remembering. I wasn't expecting anything weird to happen. But now, looking back, that moment, the quiet and the chaos, was probably the last time I felt completely safe that day. I was halfway through a boss battle or something when I heard a voice, kind of muffled, distant, like it came from another room. One of the staff had poked her head into the lounge area. I didn't really look up, just heard her say a name. I think it was mine, or maybe it sounded close enough to catch my attention. She said something about a parent waiting outside. That was it, quick and casual, and then she left. I didn't move, not because I felt something was wrong, I just didn't think she was talking to me. I mean, my mom was supposed to be at the party. Why would she suddenly be outside? And even if she was, wouldn't she text me or tell someone in the family to come get me directly? Still, I remember pausing my game and sitting there for a second, just kind of wondering. Should I have asked what that was about? Was I being called? I didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing. At the time, it felt like a throwaway moment. I went right back to playing. Didn't think twice about it for the rest of the party. But now, I can't stop replaying it in my head. That worker, that voice, that message, it scratches at something in the back of my brain. What if it was meant for me? What if I'd stood up and gone outside like some obedient little kid? Sometimes I wonder if I was being tested, like it was a trial run to see if I'd take the bait. That's the thing about moments like that. They don't feel important until after, when it's too late to do anything but wonder. I was still in that chair, half focused on my game, when she walked up. No announcement, no warning. She just kind of appeared in my peripheral vision, like she'd been there the whole time and I hadn't noticed. She didn't look like staff, didn't look like she belonged with the party either. But the way she moved, the way she smiled, it was like she belonged somehow. Like she was entitled to be there, and I was the one who hadn't been paying attention. She said my mom's name. That's what got me. Not your mom, not your mother, but her actual name, like someone who'd known her for years. Like family. And that was enough to make me sit up a bit. I didn't recognize her. I scanned her face for something familiar, but there was nothing. No flicker of memory. Just a stranger who acted like she wasn't one. Still, she talked to me like we had history. Said I'd grown up a lot. That I probably didn't remember her, which, yeah, I didn't. But the way she said it, it felt rehearsed. Like she knew exactly what a long-lost relative was supposed to sound like. She kept her tone soft, friendly, like this was all perfectly normal. And I didn't know how to respond, because it wasn't totally unbelievable. My family's big, messy. People show up, disappear, sometimes reappear. So I just nodded and went along with it. Didn't ask too many questions. Didn't want to seem rude in case I was supposed to remember her. But there was this weird disconnect, like I was in a conversation I hadn't agreed to, like I was the only one not in on whatever this was. That's where the conversation started to shift when she mentioned the gift. A toy castle, she said, for the birthday girl. like it was some big special surprise that hadn't made it inside yet. And then, just kind of casually, she added that she brought another cake too, said she'd grabbed it from some bakery on the way. I remember she made it sound like this sweet little bonus, like she was just being thoughtful. At the time, it didn't feel weird. Not really. In my family, stuff like that happens more than it should. Someone always forgets to mention they're bringing extra cupcakes or shows up late with something they couldn't resist picking up. No one ever plans these things perfectly. So yeah, it didn't sound that out of place. What gets me now is how smoothly she said it, like she was reciting something, like she knew what a kid would want to hear. A castle for the birthday girl and cake for whoever helped her bring it in. I remember thinking, oh, that sounds kind of cool, which I hate to admit, but it's true. I wasn't hungry, exactly, but I was curious. And when someone you think is family offers you the first slice of a cake you didn't even know existed, your brain doesn't always connect the dots. I didn't feel unsafe in that moment, not even uncomfortable. If anything, I felt included, like I'd suddenly been given a small role in the party instead of just being the kid in the corner. But thinking back on it now, every word she said feels like it was meant to disarm me, not in a dramatic way, just enough to make me follow her without questioning it. I followed her out through a side door near the back of the building. It wasn't some dark alley or anything, just a narrow service exit meant for loading stuff or stepping out for air. There was light. There were windows. Nothing about it screamed danger, but something still didn't sit right the second I crossed that threshold. The first thing I noticed was the car, a gray SUV idling just a few feet from the door, engine humming quietly like it had been waiting, not parked, not turned off, just there, already running. That's when I saw him. The driver. I couldn't see his face clearly from the angle, but he sat still, both hands on the wheel, eyes locked forward. He didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't even glance over, just sat there like part of the scenery. She motioned toward the back of the SUV, said something about the toy castle being in the trunk, said that was her husband or brother or cousin or something. I wasn't really listening anymore. The words kind of slid past me. My focus was on the setup itself. Why was the car still running? Why hadn't he come inside to help? Why use the back door if they were supposedly invited guests? I stopped walking. Not intentionally, it just happened. Like my body figured something out before my brain did. I wasn't frozen or scared exactly. More like stuck in this weird limbo of hesitation. She kept moving forward, talking, gesturing, expecting me to follow, but I stayed put. And in that pause, in that one tiny moment of resistance, something inside me shifted. It wasn't panic, not yet, but it was enough to know that something wasn't right. And suddenly, I didn't want to know what was waiting in that trunk. Up until that point, she'd kept up the act, friendly, patient, maybe even overly sweet. But the moment I didn't follow her to the car, something shifted. It was subtle at first, but I felt it instantly. Her voice tightened. The light tone she'd been using was gone, replaced with something colder, more clipped. Like I had stopped being a kid she was humoring and started being a problem she needed to solve. She turned back toward me, quick, like she expected me to snap out of it and catch up. I didn't. I stayed right where I was. And that's when her body language changed. She stepped closer. I think no. I'm pretty sure she tried to grab me. Maybe not aggressively, but it wasn't casual either. I remember flinching. Instinct, I guess. I pulled my arm back hard. Everything in me screamed to not let her touch me. I said something. It came out louder than I meant it to, maybe a shout, maybe just a word, but whatever it was, it broke the moment. Right then, I heard my name again. Not from her. This time it was unmistakable. My mom's voice, and my aunt's too, cutting through the air from behind me. Their voices sounded panicked, like they were running. That was it. The woman backed off immediately. She turned, fast. No words, no excuses. Just sprinted to the passenger side of the SUV like she'd been waiting for a cue. The guy behind the wheel didn't ask questions. The car peeled away in seconds, tires barely making a sound, and I stood there frozen. trying to process what almost happened, or maybe already had. It was over just like that, but it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a door closing too quietly. I remember arms around me first, my mom, maybe my aunt too, pulling me back inside. The room I'd left just minutes earlier suddenly felt alien. Everyone was talking louder, moving faster. The fairy tale music had stopped, or maybe I just couldn't hear it over the pounding in my ears. People kept asking what happened. I didn't even know where to start. The staff shut the doors, pulled kids into a single room. Someone said they were locking the place down. I saw one of the workers on the phone pacing. Another stood by the window, peeking through the curtains like they expected someone to come back. I kept replaying the details out loud, what she looked like, the SUV, how she said my mom's name. I told them everything, even though the words felt weird coming out of my mouth, like I was describing something that hadn't really happened. I gave a description, answered the same questions more than once. I think I even tried drawing the car. The cops came, took notes, promised to keep us informed, but nothing ever came of it. No one followed up, no updates, no arrests. That woman and that man just vanished. And I'm left stuck with the worst part of stories like this, the silence after. It messes with you. The way she said my mom's name, the way everything was so well timed. Was it a coincidence, a mistake, or had someone been watching us before that day? I try not to spiral, but it creeps in anyway. Sometimes I'll see a car that looks like that SUV, and my chest tightens without warning. I'll hear a name, a phrase, and it'll pull the memory back. Not clearly, just flashes, fragments, like it's still happening somewhere, just out of sight. I mean, I've never really been the birthday weekend type. No big dinners, no surprise parties, no 20-person friend groups clapping in restaurants. It's always been quiet for me, family, maybe a homemade cake, and that's it. I don't dread birthdays or anything, I just don't care enough to turn them into an event. So that night started like most of my others. My family took me out to eat at this little Mexican place we always go to. We finished around 8, and I figured that was that. Maybe I'd scroll through social media for a bit, fall asleep watching a movie. But then my phone started lighting up. Marcus was the first to text, asking if I was doing anything later. Then Leo chimed in, Nate too. None of them mentioned birthday at first. It was more like, hey, you up for doing something low-key? I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because they kept it casual. No pressure, no big group, just the 4 of us, and they had an idea. Marcus had his dad's Bronco for the weekend, and someone floated the idea of driving out to Grayson Preserve, not the usual hangout spot. Not even legal to be there at night, actually, but it was far quiet and weirdly perfect for a night like that. I didn't even stop to grab a hoodie or anything. Looking back, I wonder if saying yes was a mistake. Not a big mistake, but maybe the kind where everything shifts just a little, and you don't realize how far off course you are until it's too late. At the time though, it felt harmless. Just 4 friends killing time on a summer night. My birthday, nothing more. It was one of those things that felt too easy, like slipping past a rule that no one really enforced. Grayson Preserve had these hours posted on a faded wooden sign, closed at dusk. No vehicles passed the gate, but no one was ever around to enforce it. And Marcus had done it before. Swore up and down that the back roads in were easy. No cameras, no patrols. I didn't really question it. When we pulled up, there was this flimsy plastic barricade stretched across the entrance. One of those orange and white reflector things, like it wanted to look official but couldn't quite commit. Leo hopped out without even hesitating and slid it to the side. No debate. No are we sure about this. Just a quiet little moment where the line between allowed and not allowed didn't seem to matter anymore. It was still light out, kind of. That weird summer twilight where the sky glows but the woods are already going dark. Everything gets stretched in long shadows, branches, your own sense of time. The road in was narrow, 1 lane, cracked pavement with dirt bleeding at the edges. Trees hugged the sides like they were trying to lean in. No cars in the lot when we got there. No bikers packing up, no hikers with water bottles and earbuds. Just silence. That total pressing quiet you only get when you're far from other people. It wasn't relaxing though. Not to me. It felt heavy, like the whole place was paused, just waiting. At the time, I told myself it was just the usual kind of stillness you get in parks after hours. But even then, something about it made the back of my neck feel tight, like we weren't sneaking in, like we were being let in. We'd already been driving through the trails for a while by then. Marcus had taken a turn off the main path onto one of those narrower dirt tracks, the kind that definitely wasn't designed for a vehicle, but wide enough that he could squeeze the Bronco through. The trees pressed in closer, the trail dipped and rose like it had its own pulse, and every so often we'd feel the tires bump over roots or stones. It was all part of the ride, until it wasn't. There was this sudden sharp jolt, nothing too violent, but it made all of us flinch. Marcus hit the brakes, and we all kind of looked around, waiting to see what the hell we'd just driven over. That's when we saw it. A chain, a rusty, sagging length of metal stretched low across the trail, not thick enough to be industrial, but not small either. The kind of chain that could gash a tire or catch a low bumper if you weren't paying attention. It didn't look old enough to have been there forever. No leaves layered over it, no signs of weather wear. It was just there, positioned, like someone had set it down, then walked away. Marcus made a joke about it popping a tire, and someone else laughed, but not for real. It was that weird, shallow kind of laugh you use when you're trying to keep something from creeping under your skin. Like maybe if we made light of it, it wouldn't feel so intentional. But I keep thinking about that chain. It wasn't something you trip over or forget. It was placed by someone, for some reason. I don't know why that bothers me more now than it did then, but it does, a lot. We'd stopped somewhere deeper in, where the trail curved into a clearing just wide enough to turn the Bronco around if needed. The trees were thinner there, but still tall enough to block out what was left of the light. Marcus killed the engine. Windows down, music up, the bottle already making the rounds. The vibe was easy. We weren't talking much, just letting the night settle around us, the kind of quiet you only get when there's no phone signal and no one else around. And then it happened. Not all at once, more like this slow shift in energy, like the air pulled tight. Then this sound cut through everything. I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't a full-on scream, but it wasn't a normal animal sound either. High-pitched but short, like something trying to sound human and just not quite getting there. Jagged, clipped, and weirdly close, but at the same time, I couldn't tell which direction it came from. Left? Right? Behind us? It was like the woods swallowed it before it could settle anywhere. We all reacted at once, not with panic, just this instinctive stillness, like we were suddenly aware of how far from everything we really were. Someone lowered the music, but none of us said anything right away. Just sat there, not moving, trying to hear if it would happen again. It didn't. I keep telling myself it was a fox. That's what makes sense. They make noises like that sometimes, right? Sharp, kind of terrifying if you're not expecting it. But that's what I want to believe. The truth is, I've heard foxes since then, and none of them sound like that. Whatever we heard out there, it was something else. I only got out of the Bronco because I needed to clear my head. The air inside was starting to feel thick. Too much smoke, too much heat. I wasn't gone long. Just a quick walk, a few steps off the trail into the trees to take a leak, maybe breathe in something that didn't smell like weed and vodka. I remember brushing past a branch and hearing it snap back behind me, and for a split second, I froze. Not because of a sound, not even because I saw anything. It was that feeling like I wasn't by myself anymore. That low thrum in your chest when your body realizes something before your brain does. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just watched. I zipped up fast and headed back, trying to play it cool even though my heart was already racing. I didn't even have to say anything. Marcus must have seen something on my face, because without a word he flicked the headlights back on, and that's when we saw her. She was maybe 10 feet off the trail, standing just beyond the reach of the brights. Hoodie up, arms at her sides, completely still. She wasn't walking or trying to get our attention. She wasn't panicking or even looking lost. Just standing there, like she'd been waiting. Her face was shadowed, but I could tell she was watching us. Then she started backing up, slowly, like she was fading into the trees. No rush, no hesitation, like she knew exactly where she was going. It didn't feel like she'd wandered too far from her group or gotten turned around. No way. That girl wasn't out there by accident. And the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced we weren't the ones who found her. She was the one who let herself be seen. I don't even remember when it shifted. Exactly. I think Nate was the one who picked up on it first. He was staring out the window like he'd zoned out, but something in his posture changed. He sat up straighter, leaned forward a little. I didn't think much of it at the time. Thought maybe he'd heard something or just got spooked by the girl from earlier. We all were, in our own quiet way. But then I looked where he was looking, and I saw someone else. Not the girl, not even close to where she'd been. This was someone new, half shielded by a tree just barely visible in the shadows. Hoodie up, just standing there, facing us. Then I noticed another one, off to the left, then another, and another. They weren't standing together. That's what made it worse. They were spread out in a loose ring, like they had a plan. No flashlights, no phones, no sound, just people, or at least they looked like people standing in the woods like they were part of it. Still, focused, watching. But the one that got under my skin was the guy behind us. I turned around and saw him through the back windshield, maybe 6 feet from the Bronco's rear bumper. The red glow from the taillights lit up his face in this awful way, casting his features into this dull, lifeless shape. No expression, no emotion, not even curiosity, just blank. That was the moment my chest started to tighten. I wasn't breathing right. It felt like the whole car had been vacuum sealed, like the woods weren't just around us anymore. They were closing in, and we still hadn't heard a single word from any of them. No one sound. It all kind of blurred together after that. 1 second we were frozen, staring out into those woods, trying to understand what we were even looking at, and the next, Marcus slammed his foot down, and the Bronco jolted into motion. The tires kicked up dirt, branches scraped the sides, and the entire frame rattled like it might just fall apart on us. I remember gripping the handle on the door so tight my knuckles hurt just waiting for something to snap. A tire, the axle, anything. The trail wasn't made for speed, not even a little, and the way we were bouncing over roots and rocks, it felt like the Bronco was seconds from giving out. Every corner we turned I half expected to see one of those figures standing in the middle of the path, blocking the way. But there was nothing. Just more trees, more dark. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Part of me was afraid I'd see them chasing after us. Or worse, just standing there completely still, like they hadn't moved at all, like they never had to. When we finally hit the pavement again, some random service road Marcus swore would loop us out, the car slowed, and we all just sat there. Nobody said a word. It wasn't some dramatic silence. It was just hollow, like none of us knew how to start. Even now, I still don't know what we saw out there. I try to tell myself they were just other people, maybe pulling the same kind of late-night stunt we were. But that doesn't sit right. Not with the way they moved, or didn't, not with how they stared, and definitely not with how I felt in that moment. I don't think we were supposed to leave. Not really. So yeah, turning 21 felt like something I needed to do right. Not over the top, just memorable. Marcus, my cousin, was going to be overseas for the month, and he offered his lake house like it was no big deal. I guess when you've got money, letting someone throw a birthday party at your waterfront property isn't some huge risk. But to me, that place was a whole different world. It had that backyard you only see in real estate ads. Pool glowing blue at night, built-in speakers that made music feel like it was coming from the air around you, and just enough space for it to feel private but not isolated. It was perfect, too perfect. I told everyone to keep it outside. Bathrooms were fine to use, sure, but the house itself, off limits. That was the rule. I said bring your own drinks, no freeloading. Keep it light, low-key, fun. That's how I pitched it. I actually believed I could control it somehow. I really thought I could run a clean party at someone else's place and wake up to a quiet morning, a couple beer cans maybe, no big deal. But I remember this feeling I had while I was dragging the cooler out to the back deck. It was still bright out, sun reflecting off the water, but something gnawed at me a little. Not dread, just this flicker of doubt, like a voice going, "You're already underestimating this." I shrugged it off, like you do when you think you've got it covered. I didn't. That night didn't stay chill, and I still don't know when exactly it started slipping out of my hands, just that it did. I don't know why I even checked back there. I wasn't looking for anything, just doing one of those last-minute sweeps before things kicked off. Making sure the gate was unlocked, that the trash wasn't overflowing, basic host stuff. That's when I saw it. This black gym bag shoved between the two trash bins on the side of the house. Not hidden, exactly, just placed. Like someone had dropped it there deliberately, but without much effort. It wasn't mine, and I hadn't seen anyone arrive yet. Out of curiosity, I unzipped it just enough to peek inside. There was a hoodie, dark gray or black, kind of worn out, a pair of latex gloves balled up and stuffed into the pocket, and an empty wallet, like literally nothing inside, not even a receipt, not a scrap of ID. I just remember thinking, who carries around a completely empty wallet? I zipped it back up and stepped away, telling myself someone probably dropped it earlier. Maybe a landscaper. Maybe one of Marcus's neighbors passing through or dumping something random. Or maybe someone got there super early and didn't want to carry stuff. I could stretch logic pretty far when I wanted not to worry, but even then, I had that weird feeling, like something in my body didn't agree with the explanation I was feeding it. I kept glancing back at it from across the yard as I set things up, like it might move or vanish or, I don't know. I didn't touch it again. Should I have? Probably. But when you're throwing a party and trying to keep cool, it's easy to write off the strange stuff, until later when it stops being strange and starts making sense in the worst way. I thought I had a grip on it, at least for the first hour or so. My close friends started rolling in, a few with plus ones. Nothing wild. Music was going, drinks were cracking open. The lights around the pool kicked in just as the sun dipped behind the trees. It felt right. It felt like I nailed it. But then it started to tip. People showed up in twos, then fives, then whole clusters, laughing, stumbling, already half drunk like they'd pre-gamed somewhere else. Some waved at me like they knew me, some didn't even look. I remember standing near the deck stairs watching 3 guys hop the side fence and just blend in like they belonged there. That's when I started to lose count. I'd ask people who someone was and they'd shrug and go, "Friend of a friend." That phrase just echoed all night, "friend of a friend," until it didn't mean anything anymore. I told myself it was fine. I mean, the backyard could handle it, technically, but the vibes started shifting. The conversations got louder, messier. Music went from background to borderline headache. People started edging toward the house more, knocking to get in, some just slipping past me when I wasn't looking. I caught one guy in the hallway and asked who he came with. He just smiled, like I was the weird one for asking. I kept trying to monitor the flow, but the party wasn't mine anymore. It had grown legs. It moved on its own. I felt like I was just there, drifting through it, hoping nothing really bad would happen, hoping Marcus would never know how out of control it was getting. But that hope was slipping just as fast as my grip on the night. I guess I should have seen it coming. With that many people and music that loud, it was only a matter of time before the neighbors got tired of pretending not to care. I remember this pause in the music, just a few seconds, but it was long enough to hear sirens somewhere nearby, and then sure enough, red and blue lights lit up the side fence. They didn't make a huge scene or anything, just told everyone to wrap it up. Most people scattered fast, like they were used to dodging this kind of shutdown. Within 15 minutes, the backyard was mostly empty, just a handful of people grabbing their stuff and mumbling about after parties somewhere else. By the time I turned the music off and started checking around, it was just me and Jason. He was sitting on one of the loungers by the pool, drink still in hand, looking like the night had tackled him. I asked if he could get home, but it was obvious. He could barely speak. I should have obered him or something, I know that now. But at the time it felt easier to just let him crash. Just one guy, on one couch for one night. No big deal. The house wasn't destroyed or anything. But it was lived in. Cups everywhere, sticky spots on the deck, a couple chairs knocked over. Not the disaster I feared, but enough to make me anxious. Marcus wasn't supposed to be back for another 3 weeks, but I still felt like I was already skating on thin ice. I told myself I'd clean everything in the morning. that it'd be fine. That's what I kept telling myself right up until the night stopped being a party and turned into something else entirely. It hit me like a wave, just this sudden twist in my stomach that yanked me out of sleep. I don't remember what time it was, but everything was dark. The kind of dark where you can't tell if your eyes are open or not. I fumbled my way to the bathroom, barely made it to the toilet before it all came up. I'd mixed beer, whiskey, and whatever else got handed to me. Not smart. When I finished, I rinsed my mouth with tap water and just stood there for a second, leaning on the sink, trying to collect myself. That's when I noticed it. The quiet wasn't quiet anymore. There was this sound, slow, deliberate footsteps downstairs. Not shuffling, not drunken stumbling, just walking, heavy, like someone wearing boots on the hardwood floor. At first I thought it had to be Jason. Maybe he got up to grab water. Maybe he was sobering up. But then, under the steady thump of those steps, I heard it snoring. Faint, but steady, still coming from the living room. That meant Jason hadn't moved. I stepped out into the hallway, heart already racing, and looked toward the balcony that overlooked the foyer. I remember how cold the wood floor felt under my feet. I crept forward and peeked over the edge, and there, down below in the middle of the foyer, was someone, just standing there. They weren't looking around. They weren't reaching for anything, just still, like they were waiting. Not startled, not sneaking, just there. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who they were or how they even got in. The bag behind the trash cans flashed in my head again, and for the first time, I really started to feel scared. Not just anxious, truly scared. Everything in me wanted to move, to do something, anything, but my body felt like it was stuck in cement. I backed away from the railing, heart beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. The footsteps had stopped, but I didn't know where that person went, or if they even moved at all. Every shadow in that hallway felt like it was watching me. I ducked into one of the guest rooms and closed the door as quietly as I could, locked it, then checked the lock again, just to be sure. My hands were sweating, shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone trying to call Jason. I don't even know what I thought that would do. I just wanted some kind of contact, some sign he was okay. But when the call connected and someone picked up, nothing. No voice, no background noise, just breathing, steady, shallow, almost like they were holding back. I hung up fast, like that would undo the chill crawling up my spine. That was the moment it all clicked. This wasn't some leftover party guest who passed out somewhere. This wasn't a prank or a misunderstanding. Someone else was in the house, and they weren't supposed to be. I called for help, whispered everything I could to the operator, tried to stay calm, tried to answer their questions. I kept thinking about Jason, passed out on the couch, completely unaware. Should I have gone down there, shaken him awake, pulled him into the room with me? I don't know. I still don't know. All I could do was wait, in that locked room, in a house that didn't feel like Marcus's anymore. Just me, my phone, and whatever was moving through the dark downstairs. The knock on the bedroom door made me jump, but it wasn't loud. Just a soft thud followed by the dispatcher telling me it was okay to come out. They'd entered through the back, the same back door I was sure I locked. I remember checking it. I remember that, but apparently it was wide open when they came in. They didn't find anyone. They searched the whole place, room by room, and it was just empty. Like whoever had been there had slipped out before they arrived, or maybe I imagined it all. I tried to convince myself of that for a minute, but then I remembered the bag, the footsteps, the breathing on Jason's phone. That wasn't imagination. Jason didn't remember anything when I woke him up. He looked around the room like it was the first time he'd seen it. Still half drunk, eyes red, voice groggy. The cops asked a few questions, took a report, told me someone would be parked nearby for the rest of the night just in case. I nodded along like that would make me feel safer, but it didn't. 2 days later, Marcus called, casual at first, but then he asked if I'd seen his watch. Said he always kept it in a small drawer in the kitchen. I hadn't even opened that drawer. I didn't know the watch existed until he mentioned it. That was the moment I had to tell him, all of it, and he just went quiet. No yelling, no lectures, just a long silence that hit harder than anything he could have said. Sometimes I think about how it all could have played out differently. If I hadn't gotten sick, if I hadn't seen the figure, if I'd ignored the bag, if Jason hadn't stayed. But the worst part, I still don't know what I let into that house.